We got Gators breakdown here. We know we're business.
Gators breakdown. Because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. And hey, kind of changing it up a little bit right here on this episode of Gators Breakdown. I'm going to bring in my good buddy, Andrew Sponge Franklin. We work together at News 4 Jax, WJXT here in Jacksonville. I think the idea of Sponge has always been we talk Gators all the time anyway at the station, so might as well do it on Gators Breakdown.
It's a long time coming, my man. I mean, like I say, we do it like daily, and we've just never said we just have the chat that at our work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So we just don't do it here. So let's do it here and let's get it going, man. Yeah.
Some of it might be repeat. I don't think we're going to stop the conversations at work.
Yeah, no, for sure. we got to shoot it.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, this would be something I think we'll try and do on the regular here, get Sponge right here on Gators Breakdown. So, hey, Sponge, give everybody a little bit of background. You went to Florida, you've been in Jacksonville, Trinity Christian, some connections there. So, you got some connections to some really good former Gator players. Yeah. You're still in touch with them and all that good stuff. So, give everybody, our Gators Breakdown listeners, Gator Nation, a little background on yourself.
Yeah, I'm a Jacksonville, Duval native, lived here my whole life. Went to school at UF back in the 2000s. My best friend, Mr. Iron Gator himself, Gus Scott, we basically went summer B together. I had a cup of coffee with the walk-on squad for a little bit until I basically ripped my ankle to shreds that summer B, and then just decided, I just need to be in school down here and live vicariously through the boys, So yeah, definitely that 2000 squad was, one that was close to my heart, like I said, Gus, Kewan Ratliff, Ben Troop, a lot of those guys, Darryl Lee, we still keep in touch, Kelvin Kite, like all those guys. But so I went to school down there during that stretch and started working with Gators on the field with the Gator Vision and all that type of stuff. And then worked at TV 20 while I was still in school down there, and then basically moved back home and got in with News for Jax at Channel 4, and the rest is history. But yeah, so another thing, I was coached high school with Gus here at Trinity in town, and had a nice run. Took a little time off a couple years ago, but we started in 2010 there and won 5 state titles, and we put together the Pro Impact 7-on-7 travel team. So dealt with a lot of the all-stars and studs of the last 10 to 15 years who've gone on to play at Florida and other big-time colleges, and even a couple guys that made it into the NFL. So, yeah, got a little bit of college connection still to keep up with some of the guys, and, just been a Gator fan my whole life, been going to games since I was, 5-6 years old. So, yeah, my parents were season ticket holders, my grandparents were season ticket holders, my aunt and uncle were season ticket holders. So, yeah. Gator Nation is where we're at, baby.
For sure. And I mean, look, you said just a couple years ago, you kind of slowed down with your Trinity role. So, but the Trinity guys that are on the team now, Trayon Webb, Austin Barber, Marcus Burke, who was transferred, but you kind of, I guess with them making their transition to Florida is kind of when you kind of filtered out of Trinity a little bit.
Pretty much that last state championship run. Trayon and them's senior year was kind of when I pretty much stepped away. Then it was just because got too busy with a lot of stuff. So I had a nice run, like I say, 5 state championships and went to 7 of them. So
I've seen the rings.
Yeah, we got the bling, But no, that was super fun. Like I say, it's great being around big time athletes like Trayon and Burke and those guys, and seeing them go on to do big things. It was like probably the greatest receiver I coached during my tenure was Isaiah Ford, who went to Virginia Tech and was for a long time the all-time leading receiver at Virginia Tech, a kid from Jacksonville. So, it's cool to watch.
And it stung for a bit when a lot of those Trinity guys were deciding to go elsewhere.
Me and Gus, we tried to stay away and be like, hey, the orange and blue, it's pretty nice. We're an hour down the road. We can come see you play, all that. So, we had actually the kid I just got tweeted, the quarterback who's at Trinity now was on like an unofficial today. So he went down and was hanging out at the stadium and checking out everything. And he was down there today. He's a sophomore His older brother was at Trinity. He played safety at Miami, Derek Smith. So like I say, the pipeline, we try to keep it true and try to get those guys from Jacksonville down there to Gainesville. But, sometimes they, have other another plan.
It happens. Yeah. Hey, when you got that many guys, they're not all going to Florida. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, and then even the 7-on-7 team where you're dealing with the upper echelon elite guys, those guys were going all over the place too. So, that was pretty cool too to keep up with some of those guys and then even watching, some of the teams that you play against, compete against, like the Miami teams of the world. I always tell everybody, I'll never forget when I saw Amari Cooper at like 15 years old, and I'm like, who is this kid? And I was like,
you knew.
yeah. I knew that first 9 ball he took. It was like, yeah, he's going to the league, buddy. Like, forget college, So yeah, Bama and then NFL. So yeah.
There we go. So everybody hit that like button right here. Doing some new things right here on Gators Breakdown. Leave some comments. Subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Right here on YouTube if you're watching the video version, or if you're catching the replay on the podcast version. Subscribe right here to Gators Breakdown. And we'll get into it. We could talk some make or break for some guys out there and maybe who deserves more respect on the team. But before we get there, reminder, everybody, July 27th, not that far away, independent Gator Media Day presented by the Sachs Law Group right there in Gainesville. July 27th, 2 p.m. First Magnitude Brewing Company right there in Gainesville. Tickets starting about $25. Live media panel, special guest, Q&A session, meet and greet with players. Hosted by, right here, Gators Breakdown, High Top Sports, and Stadium and Gale. Players right now scheduled to appear: Vernell Brown III, Grayson Pup Howard, Jacoby Jackson, Jaden Robinson, Hilton Drake Stubbs, Trayon Webb, and Jaden Woods. Hopefully, we'll be announcing some more players as well, but those are the ones you can expect. They're scheduled to appear. Things may change, but those guys have agreed to be there right now. So looking forward to the Independent Gator Media Day presented by the Sachs Law Group. Should be a good time there.
Yeah. That's a good group of guys right there. Half of them from our area. and what's crazy about that, too, is Vernell is a good friend of mine, too, because he was there down there. And then he was with the staff with Dan a couple years ago before he transitioned into what he's doing now. But VB3, I'll never forget seeing him as like a 12-year-old, man. He played on the young 7-on-7 teams for Pro Impact before he decided, you know what, it's bigger and better things with the South Florida Express. And my buddy's down in Miami, so he played with those guys on the way out. But Stubbs, his older brother, went to Trinity, so he's been there. Pup actually played a couple 7-on-7s with us. Jacoby Jackson actually played a couple 7-on-7s when I had my Pensacola pipeline. So like, that group of guys right there are all, heavy hitters. And like I say, I'm looking forward to them this season coming up, man, for sure.
So what you're telling me is I might can pencil you in for July 27th.
Yeah. You know what? I definitely need to pencil myself in, and definitely I already put it. I just put it on the calendar right here. So I got.
There we go. There we go. You can say hello to some former 7-on-7 guys. There we go.
Definitely.
Hey, before we get into the topic right quick, just your connection to Vernell and stuff, like we're about to talk make or break players.
Yeah.
No freshman's going to be in make or break category as a freshman, but I ain't going to be surprised if he's making it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I think too, when we talked about this a little bit, I think more so me with make it or break it on this year's team is almost like, it's yes, you got expectations for some guys that, it kind of is put up or shut up, or you just expectations are there. So like, I want to see expectation levels to make it for a Vernell Brown, a Dallas Wilson. We want to see these guys be instant impact guys. So like I say, we're gonna break it down, but like I say, that's more so of, I want to see some of these guys make huge impacts at a young age, and hopefully they're gonna do it.
Hey, that's a storyline we'll get into with this
a
bit too here, as you're saying. So, 2025 season, hey, we're not that far away, so it is make or break for some players out there. So I asked on X a couple of weeks ago, which one Gator player are you putting the make or break label on for the 2025 season? And you guys out there you guys out there on social media did a masterful job, because that was one of the most interactive tweets that I put out. And I knew it would. I thought that was a good conversation starter. Got some great responses out there. So a lot of you replied. And here is the list from all the interaction. Jordan Castell going into his year 3 after a sophomore slump. We got going into his second season, and LJ McCray on the list, maybe surprising for some people. Coming back from injury, heading into his third season, Trey Wilson. Another wide receiver also heading into his third season, Aiden Mizell. Then you got, former 5-star heading into his third season overall. Second season for the Gators, Cormani McClain was on the list. And another corner who just needs to stay healthy, Devin Moore. So, Andrew, we'll go into these players a little bit more, but it's hard to argue with that list. And I'll add another once we kind of go over this list. But you can make a case for all these players at some level in, having that make or break season. Yeah,
no, totally. And again, when I was thinking about it myself, all those guys are on my list, in a sense, because you want to see, and part of it is due to injury, which you never want to see, but that's a part of the game, so it's like, how do you battle the adversity of, being out for significant time and then having to come back and, try to get your footing back into where you were before, like a Eugene, like a Trey, so like he, had that breakout freshman season and, we were super excited. He had that, Percy 2.0 look, he just felt like he was going to make something happen anytime he touched the ball. So you had that expectation going into last year, and then boom, he gets hurt and he's out, half the season, most of the season. And, it's like, it's disappointing, but you understand that like injuries are part of the game. So he definitely is a guy, like you say, I want to see him break out this year and be the number one, be that guy who can be that guy that takes over at any moment in the game when he touches the ball, so, and like Devin Moore is another, we've talked about him. Like he's got all the potential upside to be a lockdown corner, one of your best players on defense, if he can stay on the field. And, that's been one of his biggest bugaboos is you got to be there Saturday, you got to be. So if you're not, the next man up. So like it definitely, all those guys are definitely on my list to make it or break it. And, like I say, we can expound upon a couple other players like Trayon, he's another guy. Like I know
that was my one.
Okay.
That wasn't listed. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have expectations for the kid, I know him. I love him. Like I expect him, to be great. And part of his problem, he's been banged up. So, so it's going to be tough for carries this year. So if you're going to want to, put on, you better shine when you get your opportunity, so we know what Jaden Ball is going to do. We know what Jacoby can do. So if you're going to be that third guy, or if one of those guys were to get banged up and be that number 2 guy, you got to be called upon to do what you got to do. And like I say, hopefully he's ready to go. I have confidence in he's going to be, but again, the key age-old adage, availability is the best ability. So if you're not available, then you can't help us, so, but yeah.
Yeah. We'll come back around on some of those players, but probably the player that was mentioned the most. I didn't go back and count, but of course, you can just kind of eyeball it when you look at the list of tweets there. Yeah. Jordan Castell. And look, of course, I did think he was playing better as the whole defense was toward the end of last season, but he needs to pick it up from there, and take that step that we expected him to take after a pretty good freshman campaign, starting that first game on the road at Utah as a freshman. And, he went and played pretty good as a true freshman. You were looking for that next step his sophomore season. I think something to keep an eye on here, Vinny Sunseri comes in, to help coach that group now at the safety. So maybe should help in that regard. Was a part of a Washington defense that limited big plays last season. So, and he also played the position, of course. So sharing some knowledge there. But Sponge went back and looked. Man, 775 snaps Jordan Castell played. Second consecutive year he led the team in snaps. Yeah. So he started all 13 games, finished 4th on the team with 55 tackles, led the team with 9 pass breakups. So you're playing a lot as well as because we got to think about it. We've discussed this. He's playing a lot because there's not a lot of depth at that safety spot. So he's got to play a lot for another thing. So that's another reason you want him to play well. If he's not, who are you going to turn to?
Yeah. No, I'll never forget, when he had to basically get inserted 2 years ago to where we're like, man, we got to start a true freshman, game one off rip, and it's like, you don't know what kind of expectations you have for him because you're just like, okay, this guy's new, he's fresh, what's going to happen?
And it wasn't like he was a highly recruited guy. So when you started hearing his name, you're like, okay, he's on the field a little bit earlier than I thought he would be.
Yeah, he took obviously some lumps, obviously in that first game of the season, and took his lumps, throughout the season. But you expect that when you got a kid who's never played, safety in the Division I college football. So, and I guess we have the expectations for him because he's played so much. So you expect with all of that, in a sense, seniority, playing time, experience, you would expect for it maybe to show up a little bit more. So he definitely has the moniker of like, hey, this is your time, buddy. You're a junior now. You're one of the big dogs. We're counting on you. So, like I say, or, a guy like Drake Stubbs and some of these other young cats might come in and steal your shine if they're just better players, So it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, I think that he's got the position, but we need to see a little more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Had the impact. We don't need to see. What was the big thing about this defense toward the beginning of last year was those big plays.
Yeah,
we weren't seeing those big plays at the end of last year, so that needs to be the launching point. It needs to be the starting point, especially for a guy like Jordan Castell, showing that ability one more time. So. Man, the next one now, you and I did talk about this one, but we were holding it at base, so we were like, we'll talk about it on the pod. So I'm not sure he needs to be on the list, but I get it because as you talked about earlier, expectations. And this former 5-star, only going into year 2, LJ McCray. His name was on the list a good bit. So look, it's hard for me to put a guy on a list going into a second season for make or break, but I get it. There's a certain expectation that comes with being a 5-star. Totally. He did play in all 13 games last year on defense and special teams. 181 snaps, rotational role, of course. 181 snaps, played rotated, but Sponge, he was second on the team with 5 quarterback hurries. So, you didn't see the, I guess maybe people expected to see huge instant impact because he is a 5-star, but 13 tackles, a tackle for loss, half a sack, 7, you had those pressures there. So now going to be interesting because he's playing that jack spot. Going to go outside a little bit more. 6'6", 260, doing some new off-season regiment. We'll see. So I think the interesting thing for him now is knowing that he'll probably play. He'll slide. He could play the F spot too if he needs to, but he's going to be in that stand-up jack spot. And let's go back to last season. There was a lot of rotation. George Gums, Jack Pyburn, T.J. Searcy. So the reps would be there for him along with George Gums. Yeah,
no, for sure. And again, this definitely goes back to anytime you're a 5-star, a big-time prospect, we're in the world of like, this guy's got to come in and be instant impact. And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes it is, but a lot of times it might take a guy a year or two. And I'll flip it to the guy who's on the other side that we count on is Tyreek Sapp. I'll never forget watching this kid at St. Thomas Aquinas. I'm like, this dude is a beast. He's a man. And I had those expectations to when he came in, that he was going to be that kind of guy. And I'll never forget, I remember talking to Kiwan when Kiwan was still in Gainesville. I'm like, man, Sapp's got to be looking good down there. How's he looking? He's like, he's raw. He looks good, but I don't know if he's ready to go. I don't know if he's in. And I was like, really? I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, no way. He's going to be a terrorizer, all that. And like I say, sometimes it takes 2 years, 3 years to actually, sometimes you can't be, we all can't be Ryan Williams and, the Dylan Rilos, the DJ Lagways of the world where you just come in as a true freshman and just be like, I'm the guy. Now, a lot of these guys are coming in more and more prepared and ready to go, but a lot of those guys are in your skill positions to where, like you say, they do a lot more stuff than a guy who's going to play edge and rush the passer, who's got to go up against, some of these big-time guys who are playing offensive tackle for all these teams in the SEC are going to go on to the first, second round in the NFL draft. It takes a little bit of a learning curve to basically – you can't just – this ain't high school no more where you just be like, I'm just going to speed rush past everybody and sack the quarterback. That doesn't work anymore. You got to have some moves. You got to have a little bit of tools in your tool belt, as we would say, and, to actually become, the player that you want to be. So definitely I have expectations for McCray to have a big year. So I'm expecting that. And, but again, here's the thing. Guess what? If it's not make it or break it where I'm just going to throw them away,
right?
Just show me some progression. Show me that you're getting better. As we would say, 2%. Just get 2% better every day. Make impact when you're on the field. And then, year 3, maybe you're going to have a ton of sacks and just rip it up. So just be that consistent player that we need is basically all you got to do. And I'll take the cherry on top if you're going to get a ton of sacks next year.
Yeah. And look, you bring up Tyreek Sapp. It might be the same thing. Now, you hope you maybe figure it out because Sapp had to get moved around.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Some of it was due to injury, but some of it was due to, I think he was kind of a in-between guy for a little bit. Yeah. But he had to step in with there were some injuries up front, of course, throughout his career at Florida. So he had to play more inside than he probably really wanted to.
Right.
So it was about, so now you had, and look, you bring up a good point when you brought up Sapp last year. McCray was playing behind Sapp last year.
Yeah.
Were you really going to put him in?
That's what I'm saying, man.
Over Sapp, the way Sapp was playing. So
and like you name those other guys too. Like those guys were all like by the end of the year, they were all being major producers. Pyburn was a beast in there. Cersei was a good player. Obviously, I think Gums is going to have a big year. He had a huge, late season where this guy's like tearing it up. So we're like, yeah, there's not a lot of spots sometimes to get your burn. So you just, when you get it, you ball, you try to do what you do so you don't get taken off the field. So yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. We'll go back to Trey Wilson. He was one that was brought up a lot. Certainly, this wide receiver spot, standout, or like you said, freshman All-American, all SEC honors 2023, his freshman season. 61 catches that year, 538 yards, 6 touchdowns. Last year, cut short at hip injury, kind of the nagging hip injury that he's been dealing with there. 19 catches, 266 yards, 1 touchdown in the 4 games. Best performance came against Samford, 6 catches, 141 yards and a touchdown, and an 85-yard score in that game. It's going to be interesting, with his third year, kind of be that, pre-snap motion guy to help, Lagway identify coverage there. Effective, he can be effective on those jet sweeps and those screen passes, but we want to see him become more of that true receiver. But certainly a guy who can be the one-cut guy and get upfield. But here's the big thing. Bulking up this offseason, adding muscle, 190 pounds to better absorb hits, getting thicker up top. So kind of, I think the way I see it, Sturdivant, maybe Mizell as the other guy. We'll get into him a bit too. Yeah. Is Trey Wilson Chimere DK from last year? Does he play kind of that role? There is some shots down the field. Badger, I think, was near tops in the SEC in yards per catch.
Yeah, both of those guys,
But DK was like top 10 in the SEC, if I'm not mistaken, in yards per catch as well. So that's what we want to see from Trey Wilson. Take that next step to where he's a threat down the field, stay healthy, but it also will be up to the staff to use him down the field more as well.
Yeah, so what you're telling me is Trey is one of these preload motion guys like on NCAA 26, He's the auto motion guy.
On the play selection screen, he's got the blue line on him.
He's in auto motion, like he's running wheels and all that. He definitely, I'll never forget when I saw him coming out of high school. I'm like, he's definitely got that electricity, and he's a one hitter, take it to the house guy, and so like we saw that year one, so we want to see that all the time. It's just just. Once you see it now, it's like you can't go back. The genie's out of the bottle. You just expect this guy to every time he touch it, he's going to make something fun happen, some electric play. And, so hopefully, I think if he does stay healthy, he can be that guy. So I think they can move him all around. Like we just said, he can play a little bit inside. He can play a little bit outside. Let's see if he could blow the roof off, just get open and, let Lagway just let that thing air it out, baby. So but he's also your little short protection, safety blanket that can get inside those little, zone holes to, catch a short ball and then get vertical. So I think, if he's healthy, I think he's going to be a big player for us to count on this year. And hopefully he is going to be that true number one guy for us.
Yeah, for sure. Let's stay at wide receiver. Let's go Aiden Mizell. It's time.
This one's definitely time. It's
for sure. Year 3, like Trey. But like we said, we've seen it from Trey. We've still yet to see it from Mizell. That's why
you saw a little glimmer. Mississippi State was where I in the one play against Georgia. But that's it.
But that's the thing. It's when he had the ball in his hands, he did good things with it.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. What's the conundrum there? Is it they don't trust him enough to be on the field more? No, look, don't get me wrong. Last year, especially toward the beginning of the season, he's not going to be above Trey Wilson, Chimere
Right.
DK and Elijah Badger. He's just not.
Yeah.
He wasn't at that level yet, but it's year 3. He needs to be one of those guys in year 3. So, look, he needs to be part of that. Don't get passed up. Needs to be in that top 3 rotation. As I mentioned, I think if you look at it right now, if I was to handicap it, if there's a 3 wide receiver set out there, I think it's J. Michael Sturdivant, Trey Wilson, and it needs to be Aiden Mizell. So, true freshman year, 2 catches, 25 yards. Last year, 258 snaps. Only 17 catches, 202 yards, 2 touchdowns. Started 3 of the final 6 games. So had in the big games against Georgia, Texas, LSU, right there where he's having to play a good bit. Led the team in receptions twice. 5 against Georgia, had the big touchdown as you mentioned there. 4 against Mississippi State, and then of course that Mississippi State was called back with the phantom Montrell Johnson penalty where he's catch and run, and so we've seen it. The ball's in his hands. He does make plays. Just get the ball in his hands more. So, we'll see where it goes with that. But that's the thing. Supposed to add weight. We'll see if that keeps his speed up. But I think it's got to be, him being at that Z position in this offense. And when he had the ball in his hands, he made things happen. We just see more of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I totally agree. And here's what I'll add to that, too, is by you saying he needs to be that third guy, I would agree with that. But guess what? If he's not, Billy G and those guys, hey, play the best guy. So if it's Dallas Wilson, if it's Vernell Brown the third, if it's K-Jack, whoever it is, whoever wants to step up and be that third guy, they're gonna show up and like somebody's got to take control and be like, I'm the guy. I want to be the guy to get the rock. So will it be Mizell? I think we're all hoping it is because we see some of those, like you say, some of those blurs of this kid can be big time if with the ball in his hand. So you're expecting, big play potential to be there, which it definitely can be. So I'm expecting, bigger things from him. But guess what? My light keeps going on and off. But guess what? The thing about it is you got other guys, some of these young cats that are going to try to take his spot if he's not producing. So that'll be definitely, an interesting thing to watch as, camp rolls in and then the season gets started. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But Mizell, definitely it's put up or shut up time for you.
Yeah. I was going to your point there. If I hope he is too, but if not, you feel good that Florida can find somebody there.
Yeah.
Year 3 for one more of the prize recruits. We'll go to him, Cormani McLean. Transferring from Florida, from Colorado, of course. And the first thing we all knew that needed to be taken care of before we could see him live up to a 5-star billing would be take everything off the field seriously. That meant doing the simple things, showing up to meetings, showing up to workouts, showing up to practice, doing all that thing and being on time, be engaged in those activities. Well, he's done that. And so, staying on top of all his assignments. And that has also, if you've seen the images, has seemed to kind of show up in his physique as well. Looks more like a college football player now. Not just a football player, lanky football player. Looks more like a college football player now. Played sparingly last season, had that pick 6 versus Kentucky, appeared in 3 games, had that upper body injury later in the season, so he earned a red shirt.
Yeah.
Devin Moore, probably Dijon Johnson in front of him, but here's the thing. If he's taking the steps, he should be pushing the split rep with those guys.
Yeah. No, I love Cormani, and I'm glad he got his opportunity to come back to Florida. We wanted him bad, coming out of high school, the whole Miami, Florida fiasco, whatever, goes out with Coach Prime to Colorado, somehow finds his way back to Gainesville and suits up in the orange and blue, and we're hyped up for it. So he had all the huge potential. I remember watching him in 7-on-7. He played with the South Florida Express team down in Miami because he's from the Lakeland area. But he always had that flash that he could really be a solid big time cornerback, and it's taken a while to get where he's at, so it's did you get all the off the field stuff cleaned up? You ready to rock and roll, and you feel like he's probably matured into a big time college football player where he knows his time is, if he wants to make it to the NFL, it's time to put up or shut up with this whole make it or break it type of thing we're talking about. So you go through all that transition, and you're here now. Yeah, you're behind maybe some of these guys, but again, we just talked about Devin Moore not being able to stay healthy, so when your number's called upon, like it was against Kentucky, you get the pick six, make plays. You show up when you get your opportunity, like we said with everybody. That's the thing. If you get that opportunity to get on the field, make something happen. Make it to where, these guys can't take you off the field because you're too valuable. So I'm hoping that he has a big, off-season camp and is ready to rock and roll too, because I think ultimately he could become one of our starting two corners, So we'll see what happens. But, I definitely, think he has the capability to do it.
Yeah, we'll stay back there with Devin Moore. You brought him up a couple times. Look, it is just simple. It's make or break. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a good player.
Yeah.
Does good things when he's out there.
Yeah.
Just stay healthy.
Yeah.
He needs it. Florida needs it. It's make or break in the sense that he's a veteran.
Yeah.
He don't have these years are counting up, and if he can't stay healthy, there's not many more times
Yeah.
to go out there and show it. So,
Yeah.
can he be reliable? Can he just stay healthy? Florida's defense, to me, will be at its best when he's on the field.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I say, he's one of those guys that we like. Like he was kind of I guess when he first got inserted, a couple of years ago, I was like, I was like Devin Moore, all right, but he's just got that great size. He's like that pro, like he's big corner. It's just like, man, this guy can't, shoulder injury, this injury, just can't stay on the field, and when you can't play, you're no good to us right now. So, he's got to be. You just got to take care of your body, take care, be in the training room, like I say, some people just have bad luck, so I feel like sometimes with him, it seemed like his injuries were just a case of just bad timing, bad luck. But, hopefully he's going to be able to stay on the field and be that player that we think he can be. So like, that's what I'm saying. I think that he can do it, but there's a big but. Can he stay on the field and be healthy for us?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing. You want your best players on the field. To me, he's one of them. He's one of them.
Yeah.
So going through this list, Sponge, I think two here that I think if they reach their potential, it will make Florida a legit college football playoff threat.
All right.
I think it's Mizell and McCray.
Yeah.
Like for me, if those guys make it, Florida will be a really good team. Like Florida's potential already at wide receiver, like we just discussed.
Yeah.
But if you give Lagway another weapon,
Yeah.
then it elevates his game even more.
No, like you said, I totally agree with that because, like I just said before, if Mizell ain't cutting it, then guess what? Dallas Wilson will play. Well, guess what? I do think Dallas Wilson, regardless of Mizell, if he's good or bad, is going to be a great player, and I think he will have an impact on the offense. Ken Vernell make an impact on the offense. So now you're just saying, if we're expecting what Mizell can do, and we've seen it, now you got like 5 weapons, to throw out there, and if somebody gets banged up, you got a whole arsenal, so that's what, if you got the arsenal to give to DJ, we already know the running backs, what they can do.
Yeah.
If these receivers and Aiden can be that guy at that number 3 spot, and then you add in these young cats, that's just going to make it that much better. And I totally agree on the flip side with LJ. He's a young, expectation 5-star. If you come in and be that major impact player and you make big time plays, rush the quarterback, we always talk about what are the, 2 most important parts of football teams that get overlooked is can you protect with the offensive line and can you get to the quarterback? So we know what Tyreek Sapp can do. We know what George Gums can do. Now add LJ McCray to it and let's get to the quarterback, man. So like that, if that's the case, I definitely agree with you. We definitely have a shot to make some major noise with the expectations of those guys being great.
Yeah, like I said, keeping it to that list. If there are guys to reach their potential, those guys are difference makers.
Yeah,
difference makers for what this team needs to do to make for Florida to be close to a college football playoff spot. Florida can be anyway, but I think if those 2 guys make it, it makes Florida a different animal.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it. So. I think it's fun. So one more, like I said, just adding to he wasn't listed, but Trayon. I completely agree. It is. I think he's probably one of the most sensible make it or break it guys. And look, unfortunate for him, as you said, go back a year ago, he's number 2 behind Montrell Johnson going into fall camp. And he gets some early season carries, but Montrell Johnson gets banged up.
Yeah,
ends up playing against Miami anyway, but then misses some games later in the year. And who was there to benefit? Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson, because they were out on the field.
Exactly.
Trayon Webb injured, wasn't able to take advantage of Montreal Johnson being injured. So, and because of that, probably does go into the season as a number 3 back. So he's got to work his way back up the depth chart.
Yeah, definitely. Like I say, it's, those guys took full advantage of being the bell cow when Montreal got hurt in that Tennessee game. Jaden Ball and Jacoby Jackson basically came on to be that 2-headed monster, down the stretch, and just they were beast, man. And so that could have been Trayon getting those carries, but obviously when you're not out there, you don't get the advantage of getting on the field. So now you're going to have to take advantage of when your number's called, and hopefully when he gets his number called, he's able to do some of the things that I know he's capable of, and I know some of the things that he knows he's capable of. So and a lot of that is definitely staying on the field and being the big time playmaker that I watched him be. As a 14-year-old, man. I like to say like he was always the biggest kid, in his his age group. And, like I say, when you get to college, that's where things catch up to you real quick, to where it's like, yeah, you're a big physical specimen, but guess what? There's 50 other guys who are the same, just as fast and can do just as good as things that you can do. And, basically it's all about health and, staying on the field, because there's 5 other guys that want the ball too, so.
Hey, and credit to him too. If I'm not mistaken, already has the credits to graduate?
Yeah, no,
or something.
He was a super smart kid, man. He was a whiz. He's like super intelligent guy. A great kid. Humble kid. He's got everything there for him.
Family connection.
Totally. Yeah. D Webb, his cousin. Was the great cornerback we had from Ed White. But his dad's super awesome guy. His family's great. They just now it's just, let's get some opportunity to get my man some totes, and let's take advantage of it.
For sure. Next topic we won't spend as much time on, but which Gators deserve more respect heading into the 2025 season? This is another pretty popular interaction there on the social media there. So it was Jed Kill. He hopped in to say he did mention Jake Slaughter. And look, I think a lot of that comes with the position, he's an offensive lineman. But certainly, and I feel mixed on that, because he is at the top of, we're in Pieces of Magazine.
Remington guy.
He's on the watch list and stuff, but maybe nationally, of course, just I think because of the position and all that stuff there. So I can say you can see that. But kind of going back to the last topic, he also said Trey Wilson. He goes, I think he reminds us and the nation why we were so excited after his freshman year. So I can see that. Maybe it's he's forgotten because he was injured last year, or it's he's only a gadget guy. Right. He's not really a true receiver. I think some of that had to do with Graham Mertz and some of his limitations as a quarterback. For all the good he did, don't get me, there were still some limitations. Yeah. And I think some of that was some of the wide receiver play and hitting guys down the field. We saw Trey against Kentucky early again in the Kentucky game. He had that deep catch with Lagway at quarterback. I can see Trey Wilson does kind of fit in that in both categories here. But the one that we're talking about here is maybe needing more respect.
Yeah, put some respect on his name. For definitely. I again, that's a great point. Because you can be forgotten about when you're not out there and we don't see you. So, I personally think he's a fantastic receiver. I think he's a great playmaker. And it's more so of, I know he can do it. It's just a matter of coming back and doing it again. And so I've got full confidence that as long as he's out there, he's going to make plays. So. Definitely put some respect on Eugene Trey Ice the third is his name. The dude can ball. So like I say, hopefully he's going to be able to show it to us, in a few Saturdays from now. So I'm looking forward to him doing some things. But Jake, he's one of the best centers in the country. Saying we're relying on him to be that, that guy to man that O line. So. The other guys on that line who, Austin Barber, he needs to continue his play. I'm expecting big things from Big Rod Kearney, the Orange Park, Jacksonville guy. He's looking like a beast out there. I've seen some of his off-season workout videos, and the dude is looking like a monster. So,
Don't be surprised if he's pushing for reps at that right guard spot.
I'm not.
I know we're saying Florida returns 4 or 5 starters, and Damian George is part of that at right guard, but don't be surprised if Kearney's getting some snaps right there.
I agree, and guess what? That's the best thing is having that depth and having more guys. That's one of the things that we've always talked about is O-line. Just the O-line always gets banged up, so it's like the more guys you got to plug and play, the better off you are. So if there's guys who are pushing for, starting reps and playing time, then that's great news,
For sure. I love this one. A little bit of trivia time for you. It comes from Lake City Gator. So who do you think he names?
He probably named Jaden Robinson.
There you go. And it's deserved. Like, it's funny it comes from Lake City Gator, but, I mean, we love personally me on Gators Breakdown because, I've talked Pup Howard up for a long time in the personal relationship there. But and then you have Pup Howard. You've had the standout freshman Miles Graham and Aaron Childs come in. They get a whole lot of love because of their recruiting profile. But Jade Robinson, man, he does deserve more respect. I mean, he took a big step forward last year. 438 snaps. Had to go back and look it up. Started the final 4 games after Pup Howard got hurt, remember. 52 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 23, had 8 quarterback pressures across 13 games. Spongy had an 80.9 PFF tackle grade. That was second on the team.
Yeah, no, he came up big late, kind of out of nowhere. He got his opportunity, like we said before. When you get that opportunity, make something happen, make a name for yourself. Yeah, put some respect on Jaden Robinson. He's a big time. Like, I love the linebacking core that we've got right now. And it's almost like put some respect on all these guys' names because I think they're gonna have a big year. This is probably, I don't know how long it's been since I feel super confident in our linebacking core to really be. I love Miles Graham. I love Pup. Jaden Robinson obviously stepped up big time. Childs looks like he's going to be good. So, like, all these guys, put some respect on that whole linebacking core because I think they're going to make a name for themselves this fall, coming up here, shortly. But I think all of those guys, I think, are going to have big-time seasons, and that's kind of like why we've got these expectations for these guys,
For sure. And I'm glad you said that because, Will and I on the last episode – when we were talking about college football preview magazines, and they had the unit rankings. And in the SEC, you had Florida's linebackers, I think, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, 7th in the conference, 8th in the conference. I'm like, I think you're going to feel different about that.
Yeah.
Toward the, at the end of the season, I expect
no
that
respect.
to be.
Yeah, they're playing the no respect card because they're just kind of like, I don't know about Jaden Robinson or these young guys, are they really that good? I think that's probably where it's at. But I think, like you're saying, and like you guys said, is okay, let's wait until November and be like, okay, that linebacking core was pretty good.
MDN Maliko 1983 on Twitter did say Miles Graham, who played some quality minutes last year and I think is going to be a dog. Aaron Childs a close second. Go back. Miles Graham had the interception, I believe, in the bowl game against Tulane, and he was on the field a lot.
Yeah,
they played.
They definitely played a lot late in the season when they had their opportunities to shine. And like I say, that young, I think that young experience, getting that is going to basically help them, become, the players that we think they can be. And I have high expectations on this linebacking core because, like I just said, I feel like it's one of the better units that we've had, and like as a full unit, and not just like, oh, we've got a stud here or a good guy here. Now I feel like the full complement of guys is basically where you're going to, have that linebacker unit a lot higher than 7 by the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of going back to the last topic again, because you can look at it from a different way. John Manusco, Devin Moore. It's mainly his fault for all the freak injuries, but I feel he could be one of the best DBs in the country if he played more.
Yeah.
You can I can see that angle.
Yeah, no, that's the thing with this whole topic. You can kind of flip it and change the narrative on it and be like, he just make or break if he's out there, all that. No, definitely.
Yeah, like Colorado Gator King, Gaden Mizell. Kid seems to be forgotten thanks to Dallas, J. Michael Servant, Trey, VB3.
Yeah.
You can see it because of. Look, we all fell in love with what Dallas Wilson did in that spring game.
Totally.
Aiden Mizell might be looked over.
Yeah, give me Ryan Williams, Jeremiah Smith 2.0. Give me that. And guess what? Then Aiden Mazel will be forgotten about. Or, like we said before,
Yeah.
he comes and steps up and takes his role, and then you add just another weapon to the bag, you know. So like
Where's the thing? If he's out there,
yeah,
I
you got to worry about him because I'm telling you, the kid is a blur. You know, he is out of there. So he's definitely a guy that, you know, teams can't just be like, oh, we don't have to worry about 11. 11's not going to do anything. You know, we need to concentrate on, you know, Trey Wilson and Sturdivant. You know, these are their main guys. So, like I say, give me more weapons, and you know, let's let DJ, you know, have his pick of the litter who he wants to throw it to.
yeah. The thing, if he's out there, what we saw from Dallas Wilson, and you know, Khalil Jackson's going to have his role in this team too. If Aiden Mazel is just third guy out there, you know he did his job and held off those other guys for that starting role.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think there's an expectation there of those guys to be pretty good. Yeah. So if he's out there starting, you know he put the work in and he earned every bit of that starting role.
Yeah, totally agree.
Let's see. Somebody relating again to the last one. Somebody, B Speedy says, I got to believe it's Cormani not being respected. With the public issues he had at Colorado, he's got something to prove, not only to fans, but probably to your point, NFL teams as well.
Yeah, no, like I say, he was highly expected to be. Again, this goes back to the conversation of even LJ McCray, you know, Tyreek Sapp. You're a 5-star guy. You're one of the top players at the position coming into college. You know, they're expecting instant impact. And like I say, sometimes it just doesn't happen for whatever reason. And, you know, for him, it was just, you know, being in Colorado didn't work out for where he wanted to be. You know, then you take that transitional road and you get back to where you are. So now you just want to take full advantage of when you get the time. And like, so yeah, let's earn your name, Kermani, earn that money name and go do something to where everybody will have to put some respect on your name. So like, that's the great part about it. These guys all get that opportunity to lace it up, you know, and, you know, a few more Saturdays from now. And we get to talk about whether or not they rose up or they as we would say, you either barbecue or mildew. So what you gonna do? You gonna barbecue or you gonna know? You're going to the mildew. You didn't do nothing. So, but yeah.
A couple more here. Eric Mulhair, neat angle here. Caleb Banks, he says.
Okay.
Plays like he, if he plays like he finished last season, and people are going to start using the words like first round.
Yeah.
And wonder why he wasn't more hyped coming into the year.
Yeah. No. I went back and looked at that 23 class that came in with the class and then that transfer. And like Caleb Banks and Cam were definitely two vital pieces that turned out to be really great players. And so, yeah, definitely, you know, he's got that first round moniker. You know, we're all super glad that he came back so that he can be that first round type of talent that we have on that D line to make those, you know, big time impact plays just to make that D line, you know, as good as it can be. So put some respect on his name and let's go first round. We need a first rounder.
Yeah. Hey, let's go to his cohort too, because it'd be the last one right here. But Rando, our brain 1010 does say, he says Tyreek Sapp, like I said, another neat angle to this, has stuck through the good and the bad.
Yeah, totally.
Dude bleeds orange and blue. Could have went to any team in college. Could have went pro. Decides to come back. Yeah. Deserves some respect for doing all that. I completely agree. I mean, definitely. Like I said, it's been tough for Tyreek Sapp. Yeah. Hey, go play here because we need you. It may not be your best spot. Yeah. But he got to go be a team player. He's got to go do his job somewhere on a defensive line that may not suit his skills, but he's going to go do his job out there. And look, found a home last year, found a spot, dominated, and now is on draft boards, on SEC watch lists, all that good stuff. So in a way, getting that respect, but probably deserves more respect from Gator Nation, I guess, in some ways, because of all that stuff that, we just say he went through, stuck through the good and bad, did his job, and now he's reaping the rewards. Yeah, this day and age, guys come and go. They're out of there, if the wind doesn't blow right for them. So, just for him to, deal with all the adversity, again, I'm sure – just like I said, I had those high expectations of him coming out of high school. I'm sure he did too. He probably thought, hey, I'm a stud. I'm going to get on this field early. I'm going to make an impact.
And when it doesn't work out your way, what do? Do you step up and, grind it out and figure out your spot, your role, or do you basically just tuck your tail and you never play here, you transfer out, you go wherever, who knows? But you made the grind, you made the sacrifice, you played out of position, like we said before, and here you are. So now, now you're reaping the rewards of all those benefits of sticking it out. There's nothing more than, like we say, he's bled through the orange and blue. He's been here with us. So, kudos to him for basically sticking around and not doing what a lot of guys do when things get tough. They just bounce, leave, transfer, so yeah, super expectations. Let's go Tyreek. Let's get some, big time plays. And he's one of my favorite guys on the team.
Hey, and speaking of that example, that goes for so many guys on this team. And what it might be a rallying point for this team to go make that playoff run because, look, man, Jake Slaughter, Austin Barber, Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Bell, all these guys, if you're a younger player on the team, they came back to play with you. They came back to, hey, let's go do something. We've gotten our teeth kicked in the last few years. Yeah. We haven't been what Florida fans expect. We're not expect what we expect. We've went through the hard times. We've been in the valley. It's time to reap the rewards. So, hey, we'll put you on our back.
Yeah.
But it's go time. We like this young talent on this team. Yeah, those veteran players see, hey, there's potential with these young guys. I'm coming back for this.
That's exactly what it is. Definitely. They see that what the possibility can be. They see this young core of, talented players, and they're like, we can be those senior leaders. We could be those guys who've been in the trenches when things weren't going good to where, I could see what we can be, so you hope that like the young guys adhere to that and, you have that good team, rallying cry to basically list, have that good team, just that team feel of just, we're all together, as one. And when you have that, in this sport, there's nothing, you got to be all 22, and depth, so you got to all play all 11 on offense. You got to play all 11 on defense, and you got to, respect, love, care about the guy next to you. Like that's, coach speak, all that, but like, it's true. Like when you have that, like feeling in the locker room, that you care about the guy next to you, or, you want to see that guy succeed, the older guys wanting to see the young guys, have the potential to be studs and stars, it's just a thing, and it's, I have the feeling, and we all do, like I say, the optimism of what we feel like this team can be. So definitely we're drinking our orange and blue Kool-Aid, and it's super good right now. So it's
got a lot of sugar in it.
It's July hopium, month, so we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, definitely feeling good right now. So that there ain't nothing but, that's how we got to feel, right?
Hey, it's better than the alternative what we have been going into seasons. I can tell you that. I mean, we've had our hopes, but
definitely.
We could be better. I'm not expecting Atlanta. I'm not expecting a college football playoff berth. Well, you know what? I am this year.
Exactly. I think we had those blind expectations the last 2 years, but again, when you're in a transitional period too, with the staff and all that stuff, it takes time. It's just, and again, we
weren't going overboard with it. I wasn't expecting. I wasn't demanding a championship.
You and I were on the realist category of like we kind of knew what to expect. We hoped for a little more. We kind of expected maybe a little bit more, but we were kind of in the ballpark of what we thought was going to happen. And I think now seeing this team and knowing the makeup of it and the special players that we have, obviously with the the number one position with the quarterback, you feel like there's definitely some things there that can go right. So it's just a matter of like, let's just wait and see. And that's the hard part. We got to wait a couple more weeks.
Unfortunately, but yeah, we'll get there. we will get there. So, all right, man, Sponge. Hey, thanks, man. Good stuff.
Yeah. Good stuff,
we'll certainly do it again. So we'll do some schedule, a unique look at the schedule next time we get together.
All right.
We'll take a look at it a couple of ways. Not the, everybody talks about how hard it is. We all know that. But from a fan perspective, like what games are we most looking forward to? Who do we want to beat the most? We'll take some different angles to it.
All right.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, brother.
All right, we'll do it again. All right, everybody, for Sponge right there, Andrew Franklin. I am the host of Gators Breakdown, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining us on this episode of Gators Breakdown.